everything that He said? If we're not, then the enemy is going to come in behind us with a snare and take us down. Just like the dream that I had when all this broke loose of 2 snakes, one in front of me and one behind me. One got behind me. The one that got behind me, what does that mean? He come from inside your flock. Who follows the shepherd? His flock. A person inside your flock is going to come and be the second snake that's going to come and have a tooth that's going to stick in you. And that problem will never go away because I never got help for it. And it hasn't went away. It hasn't went away. And it won't. So don't fret with it. You can't fix it. You can't fix it's what God's saying. Let it be. Don't cry and tremble and worry about it. Don't fear about it. I'll protect you. If God can't protect the ministry, you're in trouble anyway. You ain't got a chance. You ain't got a chance. You ain't got a chance to go forward. That's the laws of warfare right there. And if we're going to go to an all-out war with Satan, go forward. Without fear, without trembling, without anything. Our war is spiritual. Thank God that we don't have to draw a sword and go out and fight right now the town down here in Doran. Because I think if we did, I don't know if any of us would go, to be honest with you. But our battles are spiritual. And I hope that you're going forward spiritually. And not letting the fear of pulling out of a sword of the Word, using the shield of faith, stopping you from becoming all that God wants us to become. Or are you letting the enemy fear you and keep you from going forward? Are you letting the tares and the things that the enemy's planted destroy you and keep you from becoming all that God wants us to be? Because it's time that we go forward into everything that God wants us. In Numbers 32, verse 21, God said this. He said, "And we go all of you armed over Jordan before the Lord until He hath driven out His enemies from before Him." We got to go armed. Armed with our weaponry, with the things He's given us, over into that promised land. We said it's time for an all-out war against Satan. And that war is leading us to Jordan. And we're going to cross over in the promised land if you want to fight. You're going to cross over on dry land and you're going to end up into the promised land of the promises that Christ paid for. Life, life more abundantly, the fruits of the Spirit, the things that He promised to us that's going to begin to grow and become greater and greater in our life. It's going to become greater things. And when you cross over Jordan, your eyes is going to change and you're going to begin to see that these things are really real. You're going to begin to see that there's really life and there's really things. But only if you go forward in the Lord with armor and fighting. Not letting the enemy and the tares distract you and bring you down. Knowing that God is on your side. Knowing that He sent angels before us. Knowing that He prepared this. He spoke it over 3 years ago that this is how it was going to happen. So how could I know that? I can't know that. There is no way I could guess these things. There's no way by the percentage of chances would I guess these things. Could I guess any of this? But He's saying it's time that we realize this. Don't be like David, wrapped up in your problems and tears and situations around you. Laying around saying, "God, when are you going to help me and move for me?" When He's saying, "I've done paid the price for everything. I've done equipped you with everything. Would you quit letting the enemies bother you? Quit letting the situations bother you. I've got everything prepared. I'm going before you in this war. I've called you to war. Now go to war." And quit letting the tares and the problems and people looking at you bad, people saying things and situations not going the way you think it should go, because we ought to know that all things will work together for the good. We ought to know that God's in control and He will work it all out. But if we want to cross over Jordan, it's our choice, or we can stay in the place where David was at and cry and whimp and bellyache about, "Lord, where are you at? What's going on? What situations is happening?" I don't look for an all-out revival, and that's what I was telling you until after Easter. I'm going to be honest with you. I don't look for God to really pour out His Spirit tremendously upon us until we're dancing and shouting in tremendous victory until we cross over Jordan. Now, He may come along and help us do so many things, but an all-out revival, that's what I'm asking the church for, prayer and fasting and war. And when we cross over Jordan, who knows how long a revival may last. It may last for decades. It may last for decades. And He'll add and fill the church up the way He wants to with the people He wants to fill it up. But only if we quit letting the tares and the problems like David had bother us and go forward in warfare. This is warfare, people. And this warfare is as real as the war that's going on in Afghanistan right now. There's people dying today in that country. They're dying. Well, we're going to die one day. But the death that we're going to die is either life with Christ, death to hell. It's eternal. It's eternal. The decisions we're making right now is eternal. Decisions we're making in our life are eternal. And many of you are getting wrapped up in your problems so much and in a terror so much, you're like David, you don't even have enough strength to get yourself up. You don't even have enough strength to fight. You don't even have enough strength to do what God has asked us to do. You don't have enough get up to go forward. You're just like David was. You're just like he was, saying, oh, look at them enemies out there and what they're doing to me. They're gaining in everything. They're gaining in every way. And Lord, why ain't I gaining nothing? And Lord, what happened? I'm sorry. You know my heart's intent is to go forward. And He knows your heart intent is to go forward. But you know what He's telling you tonight? Your problem's you. Your problem is you're looking at your enemies. You're looking at your tares. And you don't think you got a chance. You're looking at the Jericho walls. You're looking at the giants. You're looking at the problem around you and you think you have no chance. You don't know that all things work together for good. You don't know the power in you. The power in the name of Jesus. You don't know this, or you would go forward and win. You don't know and you ain't recognized that you can resist Satan and he'll flee. It's happened to you every now and then, but it can happen in every situation. But this kind only comes by prayer and fasting, is what Jesus said. This is a tough enemy we're fighting, people. This is an enemy that's been building for decades. This is an enemy that's been coming for decades. And this is a tough enemy we're fighting. But it can be beaten. We're guaranteed victory if we obey. But it only comes by prayer and fasting. Now, if you don't want to pray and fast, guess what's going to happen to you? Guess what situation is going to overcome you? We're going to end up in a place that we don't want to be. How great will that darkness be? Our enemies will overtake us and we can end up depressed and destroyed in everything that happens and everything that goes on. Or then we can have the victory like they did in 2 Chronicles 20:29 when he said, and the fear of God was on all kingdoms of this country when they had heard that the Lord fought against the enemies of Israel. When people hear that the Lord has fought your enemies and won, nations will fear you. Nations will be afraid of you. As we said, He's looking for a group of people to open the windows of heaven on and pour out a blessing. It's in Malachi 3 that the world will know that you're His. That's paraphrasing it. There'll be no doubt. The world will know that this is my chosen people, and you better not mess with them. You mess with them, and I'm going to hurt you. You mess with them, and I'm going to take away the thing that you fear the most will come upon you. The things that bother you the most is going to come upon you, and I'm going to turn a deaf ear to you. You mess with my people, that's what will happen to you. And it's happening right now to people everywhere. Why do you think the Islam people are so miserable? Because they're against God's chosen people. They are so miserable, the thing they fear the most is coming upon them. They're miserable because God's turned a deaf ear to them. And they're miserable and they're wanting everybody else to feel miserable around them. They're wanting everybody else to be killed and be destroyed around them. That's what's happening to them. Well, that's what's going to happen.